So good afternoon. Today is January 15th, 2019, and for today's monthly refresher training, what we'll be going through is right here in front of us on this agenda. We'll be going through tasks, and we'll go through the My Company level stuff first for tasks to view where we can create and edit common tasks. And then also we'll go through the schedule, and we'll do a similar thing starting at the My Company level, going through schedule templates, taking a look at what you can do there, and then for both of them, moving to a project to import common tasks, to import a schedule template, and to review how to use those functions and really how to get the most out of them for yourself and your team. So that said, where we'll start is for tasks. And as a reminder, the My Company section is where you manage all of your master templates, and this can be found under the building or waffle icon here in the top right. So I'll go ahead and click that. And where we'll start here is up at these top level tabs. As I mentioned, these are going to be all of the master templates for your company and for your set of projects. So we're going to start here on the tasks tab. Over here on the left is all of our common tasks available for import either to opportunities or projects for our company. And then over here on the right is all of the details for each of these tasks. So I'll go ahead and just click on one of them to show you a little bit about what you can do here. So the first thing is, of course, we've got our title here. We can also add a description. If there's really more detail to this, you can add that there. And I think the way that most people use tasks is really as a to-do list. So you can add your subtask below if you'd like to. I think this tends to be more of a personal preference thing. If you'd like to do subtasks versus just doing everything at a top level task. I think I'm the type of person who gravitates towards using subtasks because I like to break down what I'm doing into its various components. The other couple of functions that we can do here for common tasks is to set the priority level. So by default, it's going to be at a low priority level. You can toggle it to medium or toggle it to a high priority. I wouldn't be surprised if many of your common tasks end up as the high priority label, since they are going to be your tasks that are really common to all of your projects. And I'm sure that some of them will really need to be set at that level. The other item that we can do here is to assign out a task. One piece of feedback that we've received from our partners is that for these tasks, a lot of times when they're being assigned out, it's really always to the same person, regardless of what project it's on, because that happens to be their responsibility and their really area of expertise for all projects within a partner. So you can do that here at the common task level so that when you import it to a project, it will be automatically assigned to them. One quick final note here before we go and import some tasks into a project is that this icon here, this blue list icon on the left, just lets you know that there are subtasks under that common task, under that parent task. Yep. So I'll go ahead and click Save down here at the bottom left, and that will take us back to our project where we will import some tasks. So where I'm going to go is to this Tasks tab at the top left. And by default, when we land here, it's going to show me my open tasks. And what I'm going to flip over to is to all tasks. This is going to show me all the tasks for all people across this project. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import some tasks here using this button at the top right. This button is again going to pull from that My Company page. It's going to show me the list of all the common tasks. It's also going to show me who it's assigned to, so I can know that I'm pulling in, exactly the task that I am looking to. One handy thing about importing tasks is that you can import multiple at the same time. The way to do that is to hold down the Control key and then just select all the applicable tasks. I'm just picking random ones here since this is just a training example. But the way to do it is just hold Control and then click Select once you have all the ones that you want to have pulled in. Those tasks that you pull in will always pull in for the current date. So since today is the 15th, they will all pull in here with the start date of the 15th and a due date of the 16th. One thing that I recommend to people when they are importing tasks is if you need to change the date for them, I would recommend going over here to this calendar tab. This is going to make it a lot easier for you to change the dates because from here you can just drag and drop them to the correct date. So they import here on the 15th, I can move it to the 22nd, the 23rd, move it over here to the 25th, wherever it needs to go. It's super easy to just drag and drop it to change those dates. So coming back here to the one that I had edited in the My Company page, we can see that the data is updated now that I pulled it and dragged it over. It is assigned to me. You can see that as I'm hovering over it. And the other thing I wanted to point out here is just this is also how you change the dates manually if you wanted to do that. Like if it's several months out in the future, you can change that here just in these date fields. So let's go through a couple more functions for tasks here while we've got this pulled up. I'm just going to review all of these buttons here, starting on the top left. This is to open or close your task. You just click this and it will close it out. When you close out this parent level task, it will close out all of your subtasks as well. It will ask you before it does that though. This is your priority level again. This is the follow or unfollow icon. So if you are not directly assigned to a task but want to be kept in the loop about what's going on, so when it gets closed, when it gets commented on, etc., you can follow a task and that will send you an email when those events occur. This assignment button is the same thing that we saw at the common task level. So you just add whoever needs to be assigned there. That's going to pull from your project team. And then this next one is to create your subtasks. Those are down here. So if we click a new one, it will create a new subtask for us. Here is for our attachments. So you can add a PowerPoint slide or a picture or whatever else you need to add for your task. This next button is actually pretty handy and it goes hand in hand with the schedule, which we will review next. For tasks, the general thinking that we had when we put together both tasks and schedules is that those are going to be two separately managed schedules because tasks are really going to get into the nitty-gritty versus your schedule, which is going to have all of the higher level items that you need to track in order to complete your project. So that's going to be your order date, it's going to be your on-site date, et cetera, et cetera. So if you do have an item that is both a task and a schedule item, you can easily create a schedule item from your task by clicking this icon here. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a pop-up. It's going to title it with the same name as your task, and then you can make whatever edits you need to make from there. So add it as a milestone, the type, and you can adjust your dates as well. So we'll just go ahead and click save on that. The next one here is just the initials of who it was created by. This is an indicator showing whether it is due or past due. Once it is past due, that flag will change from green to red. And this last one is you can manually send out an assignment notification. So if you're signing out a task to a fellow team member, you can go ahead and click this button so that they know they got it. One kind of cool thing about this is after you click it, it turns blue and it will let you know who it was sent by and when. So there's no guesswork as to whether or not you sent that in the past or not. The last item that I wanted to touch on here for our tasks is that we also have a section for comments here. So if you have a team member that you're working hand in hand with on a task, you can add a comment here. Like how's it going? So once we add a comment here, it's going to send an email to everyone who is either assigned to or following that task. And then you can also see once good will be done Friday. Once someone responds, you'll also get that email. So you don't have to keep coming into the task to find out if someone responded. That is, I think, a handy thing when it comes to these tasks so that you can really do more than just have a to-do list. You can also have a conversation on here with your teammates as well as, track and attach, turn it into schedule items, all of that good stuff. So that is tasks in a nutshell. So we've reviewed. Yeah, good.
Can you walk through how you imported the task again? Because I tried it and it doesn't bring it in.
No problem. So we're clicking this import tasks button first, and then we've got this list of our tasks. Are you seeing the same thing on your side?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I have got a bet on why you're probably not seeing it. So I'm going to select the tasks, and you've got a few selected as well.
Sorry, your audio is a little echoey. What did you say?
Let me know when you've got a few tasks selected here, and then we'll click the select button.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So once you hit select, the default sort here, or filter rather, is my open tasks. So if they're not assigned to you directly, you'll have to switch over to all tasks to find them.
Okay. There they
I think, yeah.
are. Okay. Carry on.
Thanks. That was really the conclusion for me for tasks. Were there any other questions from your side, or were there any items that I didn't review that you'd like me to go over?
Nope, that all makes sense.
Okay, cool. So the next item that we will go through here together is the schedule function of Kinetic. We'll go through schedule templates at the My Company level and then bringing them into the project and making edits to them. So again, we'll come up here to the waffle or building icon to view all of our master templates for our company. And what we'll see here is a list of all of our schedule templates that we've created in the past. Now, if you haven't created any schedule templates, your company will just have the DIRT standard template, and that will have all the standard lead times for as recommended by DIRT. And what you can do is you can create as many schedule templates as you want from there. I'm just going to go ahead and open one of these up. The two requirements for a schedule template are just to have a title and then to also have a schedule item marked as a finish date. So if I click edit on this, we're going to see that our type here in this dropdown is marked as a milestone, and it's also marked as the finish date. The reason those two things are required, I think the title is self-explanatory. You got to know what you're looking at. But the reason a finish date is required is because when we import it, that is going to be the date that's used to back into everything else. So if we're looking at this schedule template, we'll notice that all these dates are from 2018. Don't need to worry about any of that. All it's going to do when it imports is it's going to back into the dates based on this finish date. So the title is starting 2 weeks before the finish date. That same relationship will be used, and I'll explain a little bit more on that once we get to the actual import itself. The last thing that I want to point out here while we're at the schedule template is just that there is also this how to use button that you can click, and it'll just remind you about the stuff that I just talked about here. So the requirements are template name, at least one finish date. If you do have a template that you intend to use on multi-phase projects, you can certainly have multiple finish dates if you need. And then it explains a little bit more about how it will be imported. But rather than just read through this, what I'll do is I'll go over to a project and we'll import a schedule so you can see how it works. The schedule is found under the project management tab at the top, and then the schedule tab here at the left. It'll be the one that is defaulted to when you click on the project management tab. So where we're going to start is we're going to import that schedule we were just looking at. And as I mentioned, it's going to use the finish date to back into everything else. So what we want to do here is pick the actual finish date for the project that we're working on. This has March 1st here listed. I'm just going to change that to March 8th. And then we've got the option here to either add or override our current schedule. I think most of the time when you do import a schedule, you're going to use this override option. That is going to delete all of these schedule items in there, and it's going to replace it with your template. The reason I think that is going to be more typical is because I think typically when you import a schedule, you're really just going to have a blank area here, and you're just going to be adding schedule items for the first time. You can also choose to add the template to your existing items. So if you've already created an order date or a couple of other schedule items that you'd like to keep, or if you're doing a multi-phase project and you really want to import the same template multiple times because each template is just for one phase, you can certainly do that as well. So I'm going to pick the override option here, and it is going to give me that warning because overriding it does mean that we will delete out all of these schedule items that you see here in the background. This is the training environment, so that is exactly what I would like to do. I'm going to pick this first template.
Before we move on,
Yep.
so if you hit add, it'll add a schedule for every phase that you want.
What it will do is it'll pull in the template and it will just add all of those schedule items on top of what I already have on my project.
Okay, so it won't create a secondary schedule, it'll just add it into the existing.
Correct. Yeah, it'll just add that template on top of whatever else it is that I have in there, whether that be 1 or 2 items or a full schedule.
Okay.
Cool. So I'm going to override this one, and I am going to select that first one. And when I click select, it is going to start deleting out all of my old items, and it's going to start creating all of my new items. Perfect. So you can see that our project finish date is March 8th, and that's what I selected as the finish date in there. And it is going to back into all of our other items, moving all the way down to our pre-order entry, which I believe the 18th is Friday. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse this top section. The next thing that we'll look at is the Gantt chart. So like I said, once you pull in your schedule template to your project, naturally you're going to have a few dates that will need to be adjusted. So you can just drag and drop these schedule items in your Gantt chart as needed to adjust those dates. The other way you can do it is you can also double click on these items, and this will pull up all the details for your schedule item. And you can also edit them here just by changing the dates, either from the date selector or just by manually overriding them. If there are any notes that are specific to this project that you want to add, you can add them here in the description, or you can retitle the schedule item. The other couple of things that I want to touch on here while we're just looking at all of these schedule item details is the milestone button. This will change it into that diamond-shaped schedule item, and it will also make it a one-day schedule item. And if you do a milestone, or whether or not you do a milestone, you can also indicate the type. So finish, install, or on-site date. Probably the most important of these three is the on-site date. This is going to be the indicator that's needed to be marked in order for you to select a date on your order. So when you're submitting an order to DIRT, you always have to include the on-site date, and that is going to pull from your schedule here, and it will pull from all of your dates that are marked as your on-site date. So once you're done with your schedule item, once it has been completed, you can use this close item button. So it's going to move it from the status of open to closed. It's also going to close this window. It tells me now that the schedule item is closed. So the one that we just did that to is up here for the field dimensions, and we can see in the status on this left-hand side that this one is now marked as closed. The other way to close out a schedule item is with this middle button here, this check mark icon. So when I click it there, it flips the schedule item over to closed as well. Just a couple of notes here on the top section, this set of 3 buttons. The first one is just to edit your schedule item. You'll get all the same info there. That's the parent item. That's why we weren't able to edit that stuff. But if you click on this one, you can edit all of these items. And then, of course, the trash can icon is there for you to delete them as needed. Okay. A couple more things on the Gantt chart here that I did want to touch on is we have both parent and child schedule items included in here. We can see that this order all other, I think it's order all other loose electrical, is subordinated to this pre-order entry item. If we want to create a second schedule item that's going to be underneath this pre-order entry, the way to do that is to use the plus sign on that schedule item. Using this plus sign, we'll create a child schedule item underneath it. So we'll just say child number 2. Sit there, make sure that we add all the required fields. We'll just add our required by date there. And we can see that this parent schedule item will automatically update. The other neat thing about this is if I drag and drop it again, that parent schedule item will automatically move as well. So the way to draw these relationships between the schedule items is to hover over until you get the dot, and then you drag it and drop it to the item you want to attach it to, and you hold it until that dot turns orange so you know that it will attach it. I find most of the schedule, or not the schedule items, but the Gantt charts features to be fairly intuitive. The one that I find the least intuitive is how to delete an arrow, but it is very easy to use. You just double click it. And it says the link between child number 2 and order all other COM items will be deleted. I say OK, and deletes that arrow. And then, of course, we can just redraw it super easily. And there you go. The way to create a normal schedule item, when I say normal, I mean not a child schedule item, is with this plus sign up here at the top. So if I create that, we'll just say normal schedule item. And we'll make it for, let's say, 28th to 29th. The reason I'm doing this always as a day later is all of your schedule items will always be for a full day. So I click Save on there, and we can see that this one is at the same level as our other schedule items versus the child schedule items that we have here or here. To finish this off here, wanted to also review the documents that you can create from your schedule items. So the first thing to do when you're trying to create a document from your schedule is to create the PNG for it. So the reason that this is necessary is for the system to know which snapshot of the Gantt chart should be used. So do we want it to be in this days view, or do we want it to be in the months view here? I think typically, well, depending on how big of a printout you're going to end up going with, it may be a lot easier to see the Gantt chart in the months view versus the days view, but that is really just going to depend on your specific circumstance. For this one, I'm just going to go ahead and go with the months view. I'm going to click the PNG button. This is going to create the picture that is going to be used in our documents. So we can create the PDF from here, and this is just going to contain our Gantt chart. And there we go. And then the other option that you have is if we expand this top section, we can also create a Word document. And this is going to have both the list of our schedule items as well as the PNG of our Gantt chart that we just created. So I'm just going to enable editing. Sometimes when you create the Gantt chart, it's going to need to be resized. It's pretty normal. So once we got that at a size that we like, we can see it. And then we can view all of our schedule items here below. So it's going to have our status, start date, end date, whether it's a milestone or not, as well as of course, the title and description. Those are really the highlights that I wanted to go through on the schedule item. I mean, I think there's always a little bit more to these things that you can dive into the details when you do go through them, but I think I'll probably will leave it here for the schedule items unless there is more that you would like to go through.